Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for this hour of One America News. I'm Emily Finn. To start out this hour, in a move to protect the country, the White House announces new restrictions on travel from Brazil due to the spread of coronavirus in South America's hardest-hit country. The Trump administration. So, Madison, walk us through why you decided to run in the first place. It's no secret that some young people shy away from getting involved in politics, but now you may become the youngest person elected to Congress. So what do you hope to accomplish with this campaign?
Well, Emily, I feel like you can probably relate to this. I understand that you're the youngest national anchor there is in the country, and so I'm sure
platforms already.
Certainly, Carl. One thing that I found particularly interesting about that Facebook political ad ban is that it evolved into banning material that was political in nature. It's something that was a politically divisive topic. And it's so sad to see because we'll never be able to become unified, to become undivided as a nation, despite our differences, which are obviously inevitable. If we can't even share our ideas and attempt to come to some kind of a common ground, which will ultimately affect legislation moving forward and change society as a whole in the 100%. Years to come.
Alex, I keep saying that the only person that comes second to Dr. Fauci that has received so much fame and recognition from coronavirus is Gretchen Whitmer. And I mean, she was elected during the 2018 midterms. I covered her campaign. I was still in college at the time. And not many people knew who she was on a national front. And since March, in just 2 months, Cecily Strong has played her on SNL. There was a rapper in Detroit that, gave her the nickname Big Gretch and said that she earned her Cartier buffs. And now she's being considered as VP of the United States of America. I mean, talk about a big year for this woman. Wow, Jen, certainly a very busy day for President Trump and his supporters. And Stop the Steal really seems to be the battle cry of all of these events going on today. And we know that in Wisconsin, Trump's campaign team will be in front of the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. So it'll be interesting to see the reactions from everyone there in D.C. as to what they're hoping is going to happen there today. Lots of developments in the Trump campaign's fight for election integrity. So, Jen, we'll be checking in with you at the rally. Thanks so much for that update.
I think it's absolutely mind-blowing that some of this art is priced at up to $500,000. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I'm some famous art critic here, but that just seems wildly high for someone that just started their art career about a year ago. His art dealer is going to make whoever decides to buy these pieces a secret. And Jen Psaki said at a White House press briefing the other day that it's to avoid some shady sales. But there's nothing more shady than a lack of transparency. I mean, the American people will never know if Xi Jinping is hanging a signature Hunter Biden piece in his home. Are these people really buying art, or are they buying influence? Are they buying access to the White House? Keeping art sales anonymous is not an uncommon practice if it's a Picasso painting or something like that, but it really seems unnecessary when it's a sitting president's son. So this isn't something that's new for the Bidens. I mean, Hunter's only real accomplishment in life is being born to a powerful father. And as weird as this is to say, it actually makes more sense for him to be throwing paint on a canvas and calling it art than his qualifications to sit on the Ukrainian gas company Burisma's board. Right. But this deal that the White House helped draft is just going to ensure that it's impossible to monitor if administration officials are offering any favors to whoever is buying Hunter Biden's art pieces. And it certainly warrants concern. But to wrap this thought up here, Carl, I will say that it's good to see that Hunter is having a healthier hobby of making art than doing crack. I think the simplest solution is he should just wait until his father leaves office and then try to sell his art then.
Now we want to take you live to South Dakota, where One America's Jack Posobiec is on the scene, where protesters seem to be blocking the road to Mount Rushmore. Hi, Jack. It's great to see you. Now, there have been some reports that riot police are now present, and I just heard in my ear that the National Guard may be firing pepper balls on protesters. So tell us what's going on out there. What have you been seeing on the ground?
Not in any trouble at all. I think that there is a very clear double standard in this country that if you are a conservative, you can be criticized and you can be, like we talked about, that cancel culture. If you are proud of that, I mean, you look at people who wear Make America Great Again hats supporting the president of the United States, and they get canceled as well. So you never see that on the other side. You don't see that if someone's out there wearing a Feel the Burn shirt, they're not, being publicly attacked. And so I think, it's definitely that double standard in this country. So Gundy wouldn't have had any backlash at all if he was wearing a Huffington Post shirt or, someone like the Daily Beast or CNN or MSNBC, any of them on the left.
Well, first of all, ni hao to you, Carl. I actually learned a bit of Chinese in my day. studied it for a couple of years. The only thing I know how to say is "Woda Meiguo Zhen, Woda Zhongguang Hong Bu Hao," which means I'm American and my Chinese is really bad. So I know John Cena had to put in a lot of effort just to make this apology video. I guess he's been speaking Chinese for a couple of years. He started learning the language when WWE was trying to expand into China. So it was all for monetary gain, just like this apology video was. Yeah, I guess he's apologizing for saying that Taiwan is a country, but like you said, it is. And it has been since the 1940s when Chiang Kai-shek fled Mao's communist regime in China. And, fast forward to today, Fast and Furious 9 is out. I can't believe there's been so many of those movies at this point. It's starring John Cena. They made $140 million in Chinese box offices. So frankly, it's just sad to see Cena caving to China's pressure. Yeah. So he should be standing up for democracy, standing up for the Taiwanese people. I would much rather see a video from Cena standing up for what's right and true. Yeah. Maybe condemning China's genocide of Uyghur Muslims. Make a video saying that that's Humbu Hao. That's really bad. Yeah. Make a video standing up for Hong Kong, saying that Hong Kong should be free. But unfortunately, Carl, we all know that's not going to happen because at the end of the day, all Cena cares about is making millions of dollars.
It certainly sounds like President Trump is being cautious. And Chanel, I think it's interesting to quickly point out, we saw some reports of some of the demonstrators, although they were small groups within the giant protest, they were actually waving American flags. And so many believe that repping the U.S. flag is not only an effort to infuriate President Xi and make his government look weak, like they've lost total control of the city, but other protesters are saying that they're trying to encourage President Trump and the U.S. government, for that matter, to take some action. But like you pointed out, a more diplomatic tone might be the best approach amid these ongoing trade talks. So let's shift to our trade war with China. We know the White House's September deadline for the 10% tariffs have been delayed to November. What does the president's game plan seem to be here? As our country attempts to grapple with nationwide protests against police brutality and the coronavirus pandemic, we turn our attention to this year's elections. He's a former Oakland Raiders safety, Super Bowl champion, and now the Republican nominee in Utah's 4th Congressional District. Burgess Owens joins us now. Hello, Mr. Owens. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to chatting with you for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so over the weekend, President Trump endorsed your campaign and you responded and said, quote, "From a childhood in segregation to being endorsed by the president, it's an honor to live in a country that has made that possible." But in America right now, we are seeing many people that don't necessarily agree with you that it's an honor to live in this country. Instead of celebrating 4th of July weekend, we saw large protests across the nation supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. So how do you feel the president has handled this nationwide unrest?
Well, first of all, he's doing the right thing. What we have to understand, Emily, and
vote on that. Why can't they do that?
I completely agree with you, Carl. And while it seems promising to see these parties coming together, both sides have acknowledged that it's going to be difficult to get any legislation through, which is awful because it should be one thing that they're focused on. This is obviously a crisis at the border, and it's mind-boggling that they're still so polarized on how to deal with it. Republicans obviously are, advocating for ramping up more border security, and the Democrats still want these legal protections for illegal immigrant children. But the reality of the situation at the border is that no matter how many times the Biden administration refuses to acknowledge this crisis, when he undid all of the President Trump administration policies, reinstituting catch and release, stopping the border wall construction, he got rid of the Remain in Mexico policy, we saw what happened. There was nearly 100,000 apprehensions at the border in February. And according to CBP data, the numbers for March are looking much worse. Yeah. And so we know that, it's the increase in these unaccompanied minors that are really the problem here. And the cartels are using them as a decoy for human trafficking, for drug smuggling operations. So you're completely right, Carl. If they were to just focus on this single issue, this humanitarian crisis would be able to be at least avoided a little bit more.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe that was CNN. I was shocked. But I must admit, Carl, don't get too excited yet. Don't say they went up a notch yet in your book, because that same reporter, just a couple days after those remarks that you just played, published an article that he co-wrote saying, and I'm quoting here, that Biden was in his comfort zone during his first international trip and that he carried himself with a seasoned air of confidence. I mean, that's laughable. And perhaps the most uncomfortable moment of that whole trip was when that same reporter asked Biden if he thought that Putin was a killer. And when Biden, couldn't pull a Kamala Harris and laugh it off, he just stood and froze for a couple of seconds in complete silence. He also yelled at another CNN reporter for asking if Putin would change his behavior. So I'm not sure that that's really carrying himself with confidence. Biden's staff, who writes out all of his talking points for him, doesn't seem to have a lot of confidence in him either. He has a list of journalists planned out beforehand that he's only allowed to call on during all of his press briefings, yet he still epically fails anytime that he attempts to answer a question that he wasn't specifically prepared for, and sometimes spirals into a weird story about corn pop or his hairy legs and just leaves everybody confused.
About the attacks against Kamala and whether you think they're being effective or not.
But Ian, it was a debate. I mean, that's the only thing that she can come back with. I mean, the hypocrisy is so blatant that it was a debate is the only thing she can say.
We shall see, Neil, if they do blow up Christmas, and Santa will certainly be checking to see who's been naughty and who's been nice during these impeachment proceedings. But one final question for you before you go. The president seems in good spirits about his chances to survive. He even said he wants to call Schiff to testify if there is a trial in the Senate. So what's the overall feeling in Washington?
In the Super Bowl, if you're going to watch the Super Bowl, are you?
Yes. Elma, that's funny. I got a Twitter response from a viewer asking me who I was rooting for, and I said, I only root for the Detroit Lions, so Super Bowl Sunday is always a sad day for me because they've never been to a Super Bowl. So I'm not really invested in this game today, but hopefully next year the Lions make an appearance.
Okay, well, you're right. Stanley Cup Finals appearances. Now, Mike, I have a trivia question for you, but first, are you a big hockey fan?
Yeah.
So? Okay, you ready for this?
Shoot.
Can you name all of the original 6 teams?
Oh, my goodness. Are you serious? I don't know. Flyers, Rangers, Oilers, Canucks.
You got one. So we got the New York Rangers.
Go for it.
Boston Bruins.
Yeah.
We have the Chicago Blackhawks, Montreal Canadiens, Toronto Maple Leafs, and most importantly, the Detroit Red Wings.